Well, Tim, here we are. This is it. This is our first ever podcast episode.
We have been waiting for this day for a long time.
Absolutely. This is exciting. And today we're going to break it in, break in our podcast, the Changing Lives podcast, with a bit about us.
That's right. I mean, we are your hosts after all. And
Yes.
we're looking forward to getting to know a lot of people. But I think it'll be really good just to start things off, just chatting, getting a bit of a background on who we are. And
Yeah. And I can't wait to hear more about you, although I know, because we've known each other for quite a while.
That's right. We are certainly not new to each other's faces. We've pretty much grown up together, haven't we?
Yep, we have. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk to you about what is the Changing Lives podcast, what's coming up, some of the episodes or people we're going to be interviewing, future, and generally what course we're going to take in terms of who we talk to and what they can expect.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to be a part of this project. I mean, to be a part of a podcast and then to be able to talk with people that are doing incredible things out there on the front lines, I'm really looking forward to it. So I think we're going to get to know some really interesting people along the way. And obviously, like you said, discover just the many pathways there are for folk to really get out there and put their passion into use. And
Absolutely. Now, those students that are in the APC or Australian Paramedical College programs for paramedical science or healthcare might have seen my face before and probably may be sick of my face, quite honestly.
No one could get sick of your pretty face.
Thanks, mate. Thanks.
Yeah.
But you they haven't seen, Tim.
That's right. I'm the new recruit.
Yep. So welcome on board.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm very excited. I mean, I've known about Australian Paramedical College for quite some time now. But I've just been on board since the beginning of the year and working mainly behind the scenes and just excited we've been working on this project, like we said, for quite some time and looking forward to showing my face around a bit more.
We have. And so the exciting thing about Changing Lives is that we are focused in on emergency healthcare. Those people, the industry experts, the professionals, clinicians, the everyday heroes, whether they're volunteers or well developed into their career, or both. And the exciting thing about that is that these people have a story to tell, and it needs to be told. And that's what we're trying to do here. The ambulance shows and all these sort of TV shows that are on at the moment, which are great, absolutely fantastic. They take you into the heart of the emergency. But there's not a lot of time to learn a lot about the people on board. Mm-hmm. And so we want to hear their stories as well and how their journey, their pathway into emergency healthcare. We also want to talk to people maybe in the education space of emergency healthcare, those academics and people with a lot of knowledge, and really open up the whole space for people, particularly those if you are earlier on in your journey in healthcare, whether it be for you wanting to be a paramedic or a medic or even a first responder or a volunteer or nursing or anything of that matter. You need to know what's ahead and where you're going. And even you might have an idea of, hey, I want to be a paramedic, but as we've learnt talking to these people and being involved in the industry, when you take a step out and there's so much on offer. And that's what we want to crack open with this podcast.
Yeah, like you said, the journeys people take and the many ways life kind of sends you on different unexpected pathways. I'm very curious just to, spend some time chatting with some of these folk and really finding out what is it that led them to the path that they've gone down. Like you said, that human interest aspect, the side of things is something that I think we all find so inspiring and find so motivating for us personally as well. Just like that documentary that I think a lot of us have been talking about, the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, when you get behind the scenes and you find out, wow, this father happened with his father, or what happened there, and you realize, wow, we all have incredible stories, things that we've overcome to get to where we're at. And so I look forward to being able to find that inspiration and to keep people that have a passion for this industry on that path and not looking back. It's going to be, I'm sure, lots of obstacles along the way. But I think we're going to, and we've already, had some chats with some folk already, and it's been pretty inspiring getting into some of that too. So there's lots for folk to look forward to, for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And these are people quite often, and you might identify with this, that people that want to make a difference and want to learn and learn more and know more and be able to do more so they can help more. And you're no stranger to that, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
You are somewhat around 15 years experience in international humanitarian work. You've been on the front lines of emergencies, rescue efforts of war-torn areas. Guys, Tim won't tell you this, but he has some stories and he has an amazing background. You've been to over 40 countries. You founded a charity back here in Australia which supports refugees coming into the country, empowers them to flourish here. Mm-hmm. So this guy has a story, but and we could go on. But
just keep going. Yeah, I would like that. No,
Tim, you've lived in many countries, not least northern Iraq, in the midst of the ISIS turmoil that was happening there. You were there for 4 years with wife and 3 kids. Now correct. 4. I will add that. Now yes. 4 kids.
I'll join the club then.
Yes, thank you. I have 4 kids as well.
You beat me to it.
We have a few kids between us.
When our families get together, you know that there's a lot of chaos.
Yeah, yeah. We have to prep. Like I have to mentally prep myself before we get together, because it's
true.
It's chaos. I think there's a threshold. You have kids and they're joined by a few friends, and it's awesome because they take care of each other. But I reckon there's a threshold. I reckon it's around about 7 or 8, and we're there. And that it gets okay. They're all they're playing, but it is a kind of a little overwhelming.
Yes. It's and they're at that age too. They're all still quite toddler age. Yeah,
they
age.
are.
So it's lots of fun.
Tim, you moved to northern Iraq to set up communities and support networks for people, widows, orphans, displaced by the conflict over there between Iran and Iraq, essentially. But you landed, on the day you landed, you and your wife decided, yes, we'll do this. I don't know how you came to that decision.
Yes. Well, that's a story in and of itself. But yes, we did.
And you landed, and it was the day you had 3 kids in tow. It was the day ISIS declared war.
Yeah. So essentially, no one had really heard about who ISIS was. They weren't really featured on the news at all, even before we moved to Iraq. There were a small little rebel group in Syria, an offshoot group, very small leader, and then they gained notoriety and infamy, I should say, when they invaded the country of Iraq, moved from Syria into Iraq, and they took the city of Mosul, the second largest city in Iraq. The US had trained up a lot of the local Iraqi police and provided them with all these weapons. Well, all those weapons just got left behind, all the Humvees, US-made Humvees, and suddenly they had inherited the second largest city with all these advanced weaponry, and that became extremely powerful overnight. Well, the same day that they did that was the very same day that we landed in an airport about 35 miles from this city. So
you're like, okay, that's a mistake. Let's get the flight out.
We drove 2 hours to the border of Iran, so about 50 miles from Iran, which is the town that we lived in, and it was a mountainous area. But we didn't really know what had happened until the next day. We woke up and heard the news, and it was like, oh wow, this is interesting. Now all our neighbors, all the people in the community, they really didn't. They were not as afraid as you'd think that they would be. I mean, again, we're talking about countries that perpetually live with war and these kinds of events. And so, yeah, it was definitely a lot happened in a very short period of time. And what we thought we were going there for was to work, like you said, with widowed and orphaned and at-risk communities from displacement from war. Suddenly we had 1.5 million refugees flooding into our region where we were living, and it turned into basically emergency crisis humanitarian refugee work for the next close to 4 years.
Wow, that was like bad timing, but amazing timing, really, for what you were able then to do to support these people.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, lots of highs and lows, but profoundly incredible experience, and amongst the people that are true heroes as well. So yeah.
So you're a part of building temporary communities.
Yeah.
As well as you helped to build a hospital.
Yeah.
There. And I mean, we could go into that, but what I really want, there was a time when you found yourself on the front lines of war, but also needing to help to coordinate medical aid to people on the front lines of war. Can you elaborate a bit about that?
Yeah. So the town I'm in, I remember when we first moved there, the guy that was hanging up the blinds in my house the next week had a knapsack and was being picked up to be taken to the front lines. And I just remember it became real for me then that what was 7 checkpoints and 2 mountain ranges away suddenly was my neighbor that was going to the front lines. And I'm talking about the very front lines, stopping ISIS from entering in. And so that became really, profoundly real. And it wasn't later till we discovered that I think 80% of the what they call Peshmerga, which are the division of the army for the Kurds, 80% of those that were dying on the front line, that were leaving behind widows and family members, that were really the heart and soul of the frontline force, were from our region. They were the bravest fighters. They were known as the best, and really were defending not only our homes a few hours away, but they were fighting for the world. Everyone was scared of ISIS at this point, and they knew if they had grown in more and more power. And so, we really took it on as a heart to support their families. We obviously cared for those families that were left behind without sons and husbands and brothers and family members. But we also began partnering with another organization to help them train these forces in event medics, how to respond as a medic on the front line, how to respond in just the most basic first aid training that none of them had. When someone there's no ambulances in town that we lived in, 150,000 people. So the concept of when you get injured, having a first aid, you just drive them in your car to the hospital, and everything's done there and then. And so there wasn't a culture at all. And so so we really did support them, and it came to a point in time in the war, a couple of years being there, that actually towards the end, I think around the 3rd year mark, that there was talk about they were going to invade Mosul and conquer ISIS and get them out of there. They were going to launch an attack on the city to reclaim it. It was critical that we did this, and so
an offensive
to reclaim. And so we would go to the front line, and again there was a lot of international stations. There was the Finnish and the French, and the British had their kind of frontline paramedic forces there. There was helicopters and hospitals, and here we are. We roll up and we set up our own kind of collection point, CCP, casualty collection point, and we were able to in that frontline base area receive those that were being fighters that were coming in. I mean, they'd literally go in. You'd see the zigzag road that they'd have to take because it had been mined and trenched, and they'd disappear off this little pickup truck with a machine gun, and they'd disappear off to go and find snipers that were the remaining force there on the front line, and to attack and to gain that little bit further, and then they'd come running, rushing back through, and sometimes they'd be happy because they felt like they'd knocked someone off, and it's a real experience to be that close to the action, but to know that we could be a part of caring for those that were right there and then performing some of the most brave, heroic actions.
And you found yourself as a basic first aid trained, basic life support. You were the more informed in that situation. Were you working with other medical professionals?
Yeah, so we had others that had, on our team that were far more educated than I, and so my role really was more of a coordinator's role in many roles that we worked in, and opening up, like working with the locals. I mean, I'm not a medic. I'm not trained in any of that aspect, but was able to help, with the coordination of those things. But yeah, I mean, it was, thinking back to some of the experiences there. There's definitely an incredible, tremendous need for people. Many people came and volunteered with our organization and the organization that we partnered with. So there was lots and lots of incredibly brave, smart people doing great things. Yeah,
amazing. And you're back here now in Australia. You've lived all over New York City, I might add, and I guess New York City can be a bit of a war zone at times.
Yeah,
not quite in the explicit way as what you were describing, but I guess now in Australia, there's a lot of you've been involved in around the world in terms of humanitarian efforts.
Yeah, so I first moved to New York when I was early 20s, and I had a round the world ticket, and I ended up working for this what is now a world famous church in Times Square, Manhattan. Very big. I mean, it has 150 gospel choir. In fact, because you came and
I was there
and spent some time there with me. And so, but they were really big on doing humanitarian outreaches around the world. They did a lot of work in New York City with the homeless and drug addicts, and that was kind of really what drew me in. And yeah, so I spent a lot of time coordinating a lot of their humanitarian trips. Led teams to Papua New Guinea, medical teams. We even responded to 2 hurricanes that impacted America hugely. My wife was down at Katrina. She even got a photo with George Bush responding to the emergency down there.
That's up on the wall, obviously.
That's up on the wall, yeah, next to me, her and George. Man, no. Anyway, so one huge catastrophe hit New York called Hurricane Sandy, and that was like a month-long kind of humanitarian team coordination effort. So that's kind of really where I've kind of focused on and found myself in. But yeah, now back in Australia for the last few months. We've moved around a bit. Globetrotting family, we're in Colorado for about a year doing a lot of work in the Middle East. But yeah, it's good to be back in Australia now, and obviously, can't beat the beach and the life
beat the Gold
here.
Coast.
Yeah,
and obviously through your work, you've gained some great skills, connections, experience particularly with that part of the world, and with refugees. And now you've set up You Belong. You Belong Australia.
Shameless plug. You Belong
Shameless
Australia.
plug for You Belong Australia, which was founded by Tim, which is an amazing initiative that really welcomes, educates, prepares, and helps refugees to really flourish in Australia. And you're studying. So can you tell us just A bit about that.
I've always found that that when one season ends, there's often a time of preparation for the next, and that's often that means a time of learning, studying, broadening what you know. And so I found myself back at university and doing postgraduate in philanthropy and nonprofit studies. So it really takes the whole industry, or the nonprofit, the humanitarian world that I'm so passionate about, and I know I'm sure so many of our listeners are, but it looks at it from a more kind of business, governance side of things. How do we do these things better? How do we be more effective? And I've seen so much waste in large organizations, the UN, unfortunately, and others that just, they have to deal with so much corruption when there's so much money and whatnot involved. And then there's smaller organizations who have got all the heart, but they don't have the organizational skills to run them as effective as they could. And so, I've really felt like I really want to kind of, be a thought leader in the whole refugee space, but also understand it from that different level. So back to uni it is. I'm a student again, and it's not fun, but it's the motivation knowing that I'm actually preparing for this next season of my life is really keeping me, focused in that.
Yep. And learning is never wasted.
No, certainly not. Meeting some great people along the way, the connections I'm making too, it's just great. Yeah, there's so many positives to bring out of something that can be, a little daunting for sure, to go back into the classroom.
Well, I look forward to your reflections too as a student.
Yes.
For students as well in the healthcare space.
Yeah.
And your perspective on that, kind of affinity you have with people studying. So that'll be good.
Yeah, mate. And that being said, mate, I feel like I've exhausted all that I can pump out, but I'd love to hear a bit more about yourself. Stuff especially that, for those that aren't familiar with you, we'll get to know the other side of Ben. Some of them may already know that you've got a first aid background if they've been jumping into any of the trainer chats and videos that are offered through the Australian Paramedical College. But we grew up in Australia together. I moved overseas, and it wasn't long after that you joined me there for a bit. Now, you've got a background in media. I mean, you were the singer-songwriter, had a few awards.
All right.
Growing up in the days, right?
Yes, that is true.
Won a recording studio session to produce your first album. Is that right? We're going to let everybody know what that's called, so you can go and Google it.
Do not search online.
Go for it. You'll love it. But you found yourself in New York. You were in the music department there, right? So putting all your creative skills to use there, and you even got to record in a pretty famous studio, right?
Yep, I did.
What was that?
Who? I forget the name now, but all the guys. Paul McCartney.
You found yourself. You recorded with Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
You took over, right? And you said...
I took over. Yeah. I said, Paul, look, you've been doing it for a long time, mate, and it's showing. But no, so, I've always had a background in creative communication, media, creative writing, that sort of thing, which is what I went to uni for.
Degree in that, right? Yeah.
Yep. And because of some health complications, I found it really hard to just sit at a computer, which is a lot of the writing and media, journalistic communication sort of roles were, jobs. And I found that difficult. And I came back home from New York with my wife and really wanted to start up my own business. Mm-hmm. And I had because we'd done quite a bit of humanitarian stuff over in New York as well with the church there. Mm. I came home, had a little involvement with the Red Cross, with some activities they were doing, and then there was a shortage of first aid trainers, and it was kind of like who wants to be trained in doing first aid. right? And, I'd seen some people in some bad ways. I'd done a simple first aid course before. But I loved the education part. I loved the teaching part, the communication. And so I said, yeah, I'll do that. And I thought maybe I could start my own business or something. And this was back probably 10 years now. And so did that. Got trained up with the Red Cross as a first aid trainer and trained for them for a little while. And what first aid training was like, maybe back then, maybe it's a little bit like that still now, was a 2-day thing. And I quickly realized that I was not going to, I was going to get pretty bored with this content, right? And it was such a shame because this content, this stuff in a first aid course, the basics of emergency response, right? Skills that everyone should know, should be comfortable with to help a loved one or anyone in an emergency. If you want to get taught in this stuff, you are going to go through 2 days of complete boredom, right? First aid courses are terrible. The ones that I'd been to.
Yeah,
anyway.
I do remember vividly the one I went to, and I think we joked half the time just to make it go quicker because it was very boring. But
and sometimes I got the strangest people up there, and you think, really?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So people have to some people in certain industries have to do it quite regularly. I couldn't imagine what it would be like having to I got to go to this boring course again. Okay, so
I
what
was
did you
like,
do?
look, I'm going to die with this job if I don't make it mix it up a bit. Mm-hmm. And so I brought in, my creative writing side and some media, and I started making my own training videos for CPR and things like that, and my bit of web experience as well through my job roles, and really found that I could bring what I'd learnt and my passion in other areas into teaching first aid in this whole new healthcare space.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you won an award for one of those videos, is that right?
I wasn't going to mention it, but no, I did. The Australian Resuscitation Council ran a YouTube competition for somebody who could develop the best 90-second CPR, hands-only CPR training video. And at the time, I was running my own first aid training business, and on the side of that, I was writing and producing a more comprehensive CPR training video with a bit of an edge. Like, as I say, not boring, bit quirky, bit silly, and fun, which is me. And so we thought, this competition's up. We may as well do this little 90-second thing on the side. Sure. We could kind of morph what our sort of 12-minute program into like a 90-second thing and utilize what we've already got, some of the content that we've already filmed. And so we did and sent it off. And anyway,
is it still up on YouTube?
You can go to the ARC website, resus.org and .org.au.
Check it out, guys.
Look through the blogs there and find me in a red suit, a red pilot suit randomly, which may be a stripper suit. I'm not sure.
I was going to say, it sounded like you knocked off a Virgin Airlines stewardess
and
outfit or something
it's
like
all
that.
PG. I mean, probably, PG. But yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I just, through that, from a first aid training, I learned how to build a business, obviously educate, and I grew a real passion to help people understand and remember the fundamentals of first aid, because going to a boring first aid course, unless you're really, really interested in it, you are not going to learn it. You're not going to pick it up. You're not going to remember it the day after or even years after when you may have to use it. And so I was kind of really, really inspired to make a program, not only video, but also a face-to-face program that was engaging. And I ended up developing my own business up in Brisbane. So that was great. And sorry,
no, I was going to say, I mean, you're incorporating so many different aspects into your life, the journey you've been on, and
The journey, and it's interesting because we see the journey, and some of you may have already decided you're on the path to, I want to be a paramedic, I want to be work in the mines, I want to work overseas in healthcare, emergency healthcare, wherever it may be. And that's great because it's good to pick a point in the distance and go, that's kind of where I want to be. But in rubbing shoulders with people in this industry through my first aid training and now working with Australian Paramedical College, talking with students who a lot of them have volunteer experience in the industry as well, and then talking with the alumni, people who have gone through the program and others in the industry. And it's just amazing that you can so you can pick a path and it may be a new path for you, but you can work in so much. It just happens. What you've got in life experience can really bring, and what you've got in life in your life experience, whether it be random, like media, video, creative writing, and then you're in and you think, I want to chase this kind of paramedic journey. All of that can contribute and enrich your career and your contribution to this industry and to the lives of other people. It's not all a waste.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say is that through rubbing shoulders with these people, I've realised that their path has taken them in ways they didn't anticipate. But they've found that their participation and their boldness to jump in and start the journey and go with the opportunities that arise. It may not be exactly what they thought at the start, but they've found that, yes, their passion, getting involved, making a start, which you're pretty good at getting involved, stepping out, making a start, they wouldn't have written it that way.
No.
But it's brought so much fulfillment to them and satisfaction, and like some of the people we have already interviewed, and whose interviews are about to launch in the coming weeks, they've found a reason, purpose, and significance that they didn't, anticipate, I guess. And there's only one way to do it. There's only one way to find that, and that's diving in. So it's inspiring.
Well, it's so true. And you alluded to this a little bit earlier, and I wanted to touch on it. You mentioned you had some pretty significant health issues, because as you look at how you are able to incorporate not only the good but also the bad things that happen into your journey, into your story, and how they can actually, shape the person that you are today. What happened to you when you were, I think, 12 years old? Has completely altered your life, and probably, maybe you could shed light of how that has even influenced as to where you are today, and your interest in the health care industry.
Yeah, it has, and healthcare professionals, emergency workers have saved my life a number of times. And so at 12 years of age, it was about 8 or 9 months of suddenly not being able to eat very well, not being able to keep food down, getting really, really thin, and getting a lot of tests and seeing a lot of specialists. And finally, I woke up one day after eating a whole lot of popcorn. I went out to the movies with friends. We saw probably Space Jam or one of those movies. That might give reference to my age, which I don't mind. That's okay. And so I was keeping down popcorn. I was eating. And this is somebody, a young kid who hasn't really been able to keep down food for 8 or 9 months. And I was actually eating this stuff and not feeling nauseous and not vomiting it up. Woo! Amazing. The next morning, though, popcorn, there's a fair lot of soluble and insoluble fibre in popcorn, which if you have an inflamed bowel, that I did, it's like
Oh dear.
it's trouble. So it was violent pain, and my mum grabbed me and said, that's it. Nobody's been able to tell us what's going on here, but I got to take you to the ER. Wow. And so we did that, and then I had emergency surgery that day to remove a grapefruit size abscess on the bowel and a reasonable chunk of the bowel. And then in the weeks following, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So it's an inflammatory bowel disease. It's more common now, but back then never heard of it. And it's not known what exacerbates Crohn's, what brings on a flare.
It doesn't have a lot of,
no, nobody
research
knows
behind to really, treat it and cure it.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, there's no cure.
And
lots of things work for some people and don't work for others. And but it is one of those prognoses that you will be interacting with healthcare professionals, hospitals, and emergency services quite a bit more than the average person throughout your life.
Wow.
And I certainly have. And in fact, 6 years on from that, I had a similar flare-up, quite a critical flare-up that resulted in emergency surgery again. And it was a friend who worked as an emergency ER nurse in a hospital. And he looked at me and he knew I wasn't right. And he said, you need to get yourself to hospital.
Wow,
I don't
just
know what's
by
up.
looking at you.
Yeah.
He could tell that this wasn't just, you're going to faint. There's something serious going on inside.
Yeah, he'd seen it. I mean, he'd probably seen people really sick all day, every day for a long, long time. And then that day I was having emergency surgery again, removing abscess. It was quite critical that time, and they weren't sure how they could actually succeed. And then in the weeks and months leading, following that, in the hospital, let's just say that I've really grown a fondness for people, healthcare professionals. I've really grown a fondness for healthcare professionals and the work that they do and the heart and passion that they have. It's not a job that you go into thinking I'm going to be rich. If you're thinking that, probably need to reassess
your motives, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can get to some, specialist, sort of level. But the people that I've interacted with that have saved my life, they're the passion, and they're beautiful people, and they've all got a story, which is why I'm really excited to be able to talk in this longer format conversation with people on the front lines of emergency healthcare, helping people and enriching our communities and supporting them at the worst times in their lives.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that now, aren't we? I mean, we're seeing how when crisis hits the world, and in this case right now, we're living through a pandemic, and who do we turn to? Who are we're cheering and clapping in the streets and writing signs for? It's our healthcare professionals, emergency workers. They're not just essential; they are so important, and they are that. Like you said, there's so many opportunities out there. We're going to be able to uncover some of those things, but yeah, we really want to make sure we're uncovering the person behind that, not just the job or the career itself. So I think I think you've hit it on the head there, mate.
Yep. And it's inspiring to know that, and they'll say the same thing, is that it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things by stepping out and following this path, and the extraordinary things just come with them, stepping into opportunities and using the knowledge and building upon their experiences. And they are heroes, as you've said, the front lines of our current crisis around the world. And I'm looking forward to bringing their stories to the rest of the community and the people particularly that are starting out on their journey.
Yeah, and you might be just curious as to what it's like to do some of these roles. So we're going to get some really nitty-gritty behind the scenes look and stories as to what a day in the life is of different career professionals, health professionals. And so it's going to be, I think, very intriguing and interesting. So you might not even be enrolled to study yet. You might just be toying with the idea. So hopefully this has got something in it for you as well, that are out there listening. We've got lots to kind of get stuck into. We've got a few people lined up and a few we've already talked to. So I think it's going to be a fun podcast to be part of. I'm pumped.
Yeah, we're looking forward to taking you on the journey, guys. Thanks for listening to this one. I hope it's been of interest hearing about our backgrounds and why we're doing the Changing Lives podcast. Make sure you subscribe.
That's right.
So that you can be notified when our new episode comes up. So in the coming weeks, we hope to give you these stories we've been talking about. And we want to make sure that you get them and you can listen in and follow the journey. We're also on YouTube, Tim.
That's it. YouTube, you can subscribe there. Make sure if you want to get to know the faces behind the voices you're hearing.
Yes. If you are seeing us now, you are probably on YouTube.
That's right. Well, and there are so many other ways you can stream the podcast. I think we're going to be trying to be on as many platforms as we
on
possibly
all your
can.
Any favorite platform, Apple, Spotify, Google.
Rate us, review. It'd be really helpful just to get the word out as well. So
even a bad review, apparently. Even a bad review.
Of him, please.
So if you hated this, you got something to say about me, put it, please tell the world about it, because any review is good. So
isn't it true, like you only really get bad reviews or really good reviews? It's either like
if you're feeling about it, then
you couldn't give any more time. But if you're like, that was terrible, I'm going to let them know. So hopefully this hasn't been too bad, and all we will get is good reviews. So ignore everything he said about leaving bad reviews. But definitely it's been fun. It's going to be a great journey. And we're really looking forward to getting as many episodes out there into your media world.
Awesome. Till next time, don't stop changing lives.